Good. Well, we are very excited to welcome you all to the Diversity in the Pro-Life Movement panel. My name is Alex Christian Lucas. I am a co-founder, former president, and the event coordinator for this group. We are so excited to welcome you all to our campus for this event. This has been something we have thought about for several years, and we are very excited to finally have it together to share with y'all. So the fact that it's actually happening is very exciting for us. So thank you for coming to be a part of it. We're thrilled. If it could not have been possible to do this event without a dedicated team of officers from Wolfpack for Life, Tulane University Right to Life, and Louisiana Right to Life, as well as our lovely panel of speakers. If you are interested in resources from any of the groups I just named or any of their groups, we have a table right over there with brochures, pamphlets, stickers, glasses, you name it, it's probably over there. We also, if you haven't noticed, we have a free speech board, so you're welcome to write whatever you want on there. And we also have Instagram filters for you to take fun little pictures with. So you're welcome to that as well. Afterward, we will have ice cream, as I'm sure you noticed, the mounds of candy and syrup and cherries and whipped cream, as a thank you for coming out tonight. So before we start, just a few important points. Bathrooms. Bathrooms are located out this door to the left around the money counter room for the business school and back in. Bathrooms are right in to the left. Next, this is obviously a very controversial subject and can be very personal for some people. So if at any point you feel the need to talk to someone about it, we have a representative from the University Counseling Center. Her name is Shalini. She's right in the back. Please wave your hand. So if you need to speak to her, just go grab her, or you're welcome to flag her down, and she'll meet you right outside, and she'd be happy to talk with you. Finally, please retain a sense of decorum and respect to all speakers, all people asking questions, and their beliefs in the room. Those who are unable to do this will be removed. So please be respectful. I hope and I do expect that we won't have a problem with that. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to all of our speakers. Our first panelist is Cecily R. Smith, who is a maternal and racial justice activist who admittedly sits uncomfortably in the pro-life movement. However, it is that discomfort that fuels her passion of tearing down walls of oppression and division in order to build bridges that lead to solution-based practices. She puts her words into action by co-founding and directing a maternal health organization in Dallas, Texas. Cecily has a deep desire for finding common ground among pro-life advocates and reproductive justice activists. She focuses on what she sees as the root cause of poor birth outcomes among Black women, systemic racism. She believes inequality and the lack of understanding various perspectives is what prevents the fight for life from being productive and, most importantly, just. Her motto is, "To get rid of the weed, we must pull it up by the root. Let's uproot the system and plant a seed that bears fruit." Our second panelist is Destiny Herndon-De La Rosa, who believes in a consistent life ethic, upholding the dignity of human life from womb to tomb. She calls herself a badass pro-life feminist and founded her organization, New Wave Feminist, in 2004. New Wave Feminist works to create a culture in which abortion is unthinkable, in which women are empowered and supported to a point where they don't feel the need to choose between their future and their child's. She is a frequent op-ed contributor to the Dallas Morning News, where she has written articles on abortion, the death penalty, and other life issues. Destiny is very involved in her community and in the pro-life movement, working for immigrants at the border, survivors of human trafficking, and for the unborn. Most notably, New Wave Feminist and Destiny were removed as a sponsor from the 2017 Women's March because of their stance on abortion. Our third panelist is Aimee Murphy, who is a pro-life, pro-peace, progressive, Latina, and LGBT leader. She went from politically pro-choice to passionately pro-life after a traumatic experience at 16, in which she chose life when her partner-turned-rapist threatened to kill her if she didn't have an abortion. Guided by the principles of feminism, the principles of nonviolence, and the consistent life ethic, Aimee founded Life Matters Journal in 2011, which would later come to be known as Rehumanize International. In her work as executive director of Rehumanize, she calls for human rights for all human beings and an end to all aggressive violence against humanity from a nonpartisan, non-sectarian perspective. Our fourth and final panelist is Aimee Rose, who was raised Catholic but now identifies as an atheist. She became pregnant at the age of 16 and got an abortion because of prenatal coercion. Aimee was vocally pro-choice for several years before finally facing the trauma of what had been done to her. Now, Aimee works to create a pro-life culture in which mothers and their unborn children are valued and respected, and in which post-abortive women can find healing and forgiveness, not shame and judgment. Aimee founded Lead with Love, a small nonprofit dedicated to helping needy families through donations by and for everyday people. Through her work with Lead with Love, Aimee lives out her pro-life beliefs by helping those who feel pressured to choose abortion because of socioeconomic factors. She is planning to transfer leadership of this wonderful organization over to a close friend who is actively involved in the pro-life movement. Please give it up for our four panelists. And now I will introduce our two moderators who will be giving the prompts to our speakers. Our first moderator is Alex Seegers, who joined Louisiana Right to Life in 2015 as Youth Programs Co-Director and is now the newly created position of Director of Education. Since then, she's given over 200 pro-life presentations to over 16,000 people statewide and nationally, specializing in dynamic student education and leadership training. She is now working on specializing further in the field of healthcare ethics. She considers herself a pro-life feminist, primarily influenced by her heroine sitting at this panel, and plans to continue working to a holistic pro-life future, especially for her unborn daughter, Evie, who's due this May. Our second moderator is Sophie Trist, who is a junior writing major in English writing and the current Wolfpack for Life president, and one of our club's founding members. She has attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C. twice, testified in favor of a bill to end the death penalty in Louisiana, and raised funds for human trafficking survivors through campus events. Sophie also interns Covenant House, a local shelter for homeless youth. Last year, she and I participated in their annual Sleep Out fundraiser and together raised $12,500 for the most vulnerable kids in our city. Sophie also advocates for equal rights for people with disabilities through her leadership in the National Federation of the Blind and currently serves as the president of the Louisiana Association of the Blind. Students. So, those are our speakers and moderators, and I will turn it over to them.
All right, guys, so we're just going to dive in. Is this thing working?
Can y'all hear? Okay, good.
Okay, so our first set of questions have to do with, like, your beliefs, and we just want to get to know you better and, like, what you believe and what you work for. So, our first question tonight is, what does the word pro-life mean to you? And what does being pro-life, how does that flow from your belief in feminism, progressivism, and racialism?
Some kind of order. We'll all just start.
Man, okay, so pro-life for me has really evolved in the last several years. I was what you would call just a traditional pro-life person that really didn't look at the systems that are in play that contribute to the disparities that exist now. And so, to me, pro-life is womb to tomb. It's valuing life from the moment of conception to natural death. It is valuing those facing the death penalty. It's caring for the mom who has 5 kids and is, feels that she can't have another child because she can't afford it, lacks health care. It's caring for the person. It's caring for the woman who may, even before she even gets pregnant, caring for her, education, and also making sure that we're providing a world, a community in which she can raise a child and not fear for the life of her child. So that's what pro-life is to me. Now, when it comes to, and I just think that everything intersects. So, my focus is on racial justice, and so I feel like there's some deep injustices going on when it comes to race. And the systems that we have in this country, they don't support people like me. They don't. And so I truly believe in order for us to provide environments that are conducive for life, we have to address the systems, and we also have to unpack the biases that we have inside of us, of ourselves. I can keep going on, but I'm going to pass the mic.
So when I was 16 years old, I got pregnant with my son, and I just, as they mentioned in the introduction, we got kicked out of the Women's March, and that kind of put us on the map a few years ago. But we actually went to the Women's March that first year, and we've been the last 2 years as well. And so this last year, I went and I took my son, who's now 18 years old, with me, and it was a really cool experience to be able to have him out there with me. And at one point, I make him do stuff for me. I pretend like he's my assistant because I don't have one. And so I had all my I am a pro-life feminist signs, and I'm like, here, you get to carry these around. And I didn't realize that I was setting him up as a target, right? Because some 18-year-old white boy holding a sign that says I'm a pro-life feminist, not great optics. I'm sure, what's her name, Ingram? She'll share a picture of it at some point to make us all look bad. But so, Laura Ingram. So it was not great optics. And I knew that kind of as soon as I realized he was holding this. But right then I saw this woman making a beeline straight for him. And she walks up and she goes, why is it that you think embryo is more important than a woman? And the mama bear in me came out, and I was about to jump in there and kind of diffuse it and give her my good answer that would have been way longer than his. But I decided to step back and actually see what he was going to say. And my kid, who was the embryo, right? He was the one who could have very easily been aborted if it was another 16-year-old who would have gotten pregnant with him. He looked at her and he said, it's not that we think the embryo is more important, we think it's just as important. And that's the crux of it. Pro-life feminists see two people. So we're not just fighting for the unborn child, and we're not just fighting for women, we're fighting for both. We believe that both are so intertwined. And the current pro-life movement, whether it means to or not, a lot of times we'll pit women against the child, right? Because we're going to save the baby. And if you're saving it, what are you saving it from? You're making the mother the enemy. And the pro-choice side does the same thing, where the mother's a host and the child's a parasite. And so we've taken this very natural bond and coupling that should be the closest in nature. There's so much power in our ability to create new life, and we've put it at odds with one another. And so pro-life feminism is really focused on making sure that we see the beauty of this connection and the fact that these two beings advocate for one another, and they both deserve human dignity, protection, and respect.
Maybe tap the bottom of it. This does say low bat.
Oh, awesome.
Anybody have any pool with? Yeah.
Use that mic.
So here, we'll pass this one all the way down. Okay.
It's very phallic anyway. I feel like it's feminist.
Can you hear me now? This is a really quiet microphone. I'm going to have to hold it right here. Yeah. So I came to the pro-life position as a 16-year-old, which I guess a lot of us had that shared experience of 16 years old, like life-changing moment. Where, you know, I grew up in California where it's like everyone's a feminist, everyone is progressive, it's just kind of like a given, right? Like if you care about human beings, like that's what you're gonna be, and if you're those things, oh, also you're probably gonna be pro-choice. So I was pro-choice, and when my boyfriend turned rapist threatened to kill me if I didn't have an abortion, that was really the moment when everything clicked in my head, when I realized that what he was telling me was, you're an inconvenience to me, you're an inconvenience to my future, and because I'm bigger and stronger than you, I am going to kill you. And I realized that I couldn't be like him, that I couldn't use this philosophy of might makes right, that I couldn't use violence to get what I wanted in life, that, even though I was a straight A student who was on the path to, go into an Ivy League school, that regardless of, what sort of ill might come to me, that I realized that I couldn't use violence to achieve my goals. And really, like, how contrary is it to the principle of human rights to say that, because I'm bigger, because I'm stronger, that I have the power to make the choices for a smaller human being, for a smaller, weaker human being for that matter. So like for a progressive perspective, like as a progressive, as if there are any other progressives in the room, you probably believe that, like we want more human rights for more human beings. And that's just like a pretty bare bone thing that's the progress that we're seeking, right? Is like more human rights for more human beings. When you think about it that way, it really only makes sense that as a progressive that I should support the right to life being respected for more human beings, for the preborn, for the prenatal human being, for those inside babies like Evie over there. Yeah, so that's my take in a nutshell.
Heathen's turn. I'm just saying. So hi, I'm Albany. I'm the atheist. I like standing out. Don't judge me. So I'm going to give you a super fantastic, too long didn't read version. So when I was 16, tra-la-la, I was pregnant with my then boyfriend. Got pregnant from my then boyfriend. It's amazing to think I do this for a living, isn't it? It's not well. When I told my dad, he told me immediately I would have an abortion. I asked him if I could adopt. He said no. I wanted to keep my baby. He said no. Abortion was the only option. So I scheduled my appointment with Planned Parenthood, and this Planned Parenthood did not perform the abortion. They simply performed the sonogram, find out how far along I was, where I needed to go. They estimated 8 to 9 weeks, and when I asked if I could see the screen, she told me no, that there was no reason for me to see the screen. I wouldn't be able to see anything, and that was that. I was 16, I was terrified, and I was not as strong-willed as I am now. So I ended up going through with my abortion, which is a whole other long story. But to deal with that, I was very vocally pro-choice for years and years. And so to me, during that time, pro-life meant you were scum of the earth. You were always an asshole. You hated women. You were just, in general, bad people. You didn't care. And I had convinced myself it was a choice that I wanted, because that was the only way for me to get out of bed. When I was 19, I became pregnant again with our eldest, who just turned 7 on Monday. Oh my God. And I remember going in for my 8-week ultrasound or sonogram with her, thinking it was ridiculous, because I remember the woman told me that there was nothing to see. So when I looked up on that screen at 8 weeks exactly, and there's this little body and a little head and these little nubs for arms and legs and 160 beat per minute heartbeat, my entire world broke. Like, there was nothing in me that could prepare me for that moment, because it didn't matter what anyone told me. It didn't matter what what lies there were. I'm not saying lies on pro-choice or pro-life side. I mean, just in general, it did not matter what anyone said. This wasn't emotion. This was facts. This was biology in front of me, a human being, and I had to think back 3 years ago what had to have been terminated. And for me, it took a long time. I went through the steps of different type of pro-lifer and how I felt about people, and 7 years later, here I am, and pro-life has meant a lot of different things to me still. And to make this quick, pro-life to me is pro-love. I've had an abortion. It doesn't matter if it was a choice that I wanted or not. I had one. I have no room to judge anyone who has an abortion, or if you're abortion-minded, or if you have 10 abortions. I will not think less of you. None of us will think less of you. Because to myself and to all of us, it is about loving you as an individual, as a community. We loved you as an embryo. We're going to love you at 75 years old. It's that simple. And you know, kind of bringing in about what each of these mean for us as an atheist myself, to me it's even more about the science and the biology of it and the consistency. My daughter that just turned 7, she was the exact same human she was at 8 weeks in the womb. No one would ever fathom thinking that it'd be okay for me to end her life now. And for us, that's really what it's about. It's about finding the true equality in all human beings, regardless of our vulnerability.
Operating on the one. Oh, yeah. No, I need the exercise.
All right, wow. So our next question is, what inspired you to form your organizations? And does your organization work on any other life issues besides abortion? Actually, I'm gonna
You don't have to.
I can go first. So, yeah, I think my organization, we work to challenge both the pro-life movement and the feminist movement because we see inconsistencies on both sides. And there's a lot of great people in the pro-life movement who are out there, you know, boots on the ground, serving women, loving women well. There's a lot of groups that are just talking about the political side of things. And for us, that's kind of an issue because when we focus so many resources on cutting off supply without addressing demand, that's a problem because, you know, just saying, okay, abortion's illegal and you can't have them anymore. Does anyone in this room believe that they would stop? I mean, I think most of us know better. And so we have to look at the demand. What is it that's driving women to this place in the first place, to the fact that so many of them feel like it's a necessary evil in their lives? And if we can address those needs, and so many of them, as Cecily said, are these systemic issues. It's the fact that, you know, maybe she doesn't have health care, or she's going to be kicked out of her home, or, you know, the guy took off. Like, there's so many different things where a woman feels totally alone. We actually just started a chapter down in Argentina where abortion is still illegal. And they had a big referendum come up, and, you know, everybody, both sides were out there warring, and they decided to keep it illegal there. And a part of me was afraid that our club would kind of go away down there because, you know, it's not really in the news and what can they do? And the coolest thing happened. We watched this group go into the slums of Argentina and find women because they knew that whether the supply was there or not, the demand was there. It's still an issue. There's still women who are going and trying to access unsafe abortions because they are so desperate. The desperation of a mother who has 4 children and can barely keep them alive. And so the answer is not that any of these children have to die. It's let us help you find food for these children and for the child growing in your womb. And I got a call from them this week because there was a young Haitian woman who was over there, found out she was pregnant. The boyfriend took off. Her dad kicked her out of the house. She was completely on her own. And they said, so we just started walking with her and trying to figure out what she needed. And all of a sudden she went into labor, and they were the only ones at the hospital with her when she went into labor. This woman would have been completely alone. Sometimes it's just that simple, being there for a woman, whether she's abortion vulnerable or not. This is somebody who still needs our love and compassion and help. And that's why we say that we are, you know, we follow the consistent life ethic. So this is a matter of whole life and the whole scope of someone's life. And wherever they're at, wherever that need is, you know, we have gone down to the border to try to support families who are getting out of detainment down there. And You guys, this is the closest I've come to burnout, being an activist, when we got back from that weekend down at the border and the stuff that we saw, because we all see these images of, children in cages and the foil blankets and stuff. The detainment centers that they're going to after that are even worse. So these charities that they're at, where, they are doing everything in their power to help these communities, but they're sleeping on these thin mats, 2 to 3 people, a mat, and children on top of them, and piled into just like storage rooms almost. And so we said, we want to do something. We want to do something tangible at the border. And we raised funds for diapers and underwear and shoelaces, because they're treated like criminals. Their shoelaces are taken away as soon as they go into detainment. So you're watching people just shuffle in, and many of them have lost so much weight they don't have clothing. And so we had taken a lot of children's underwear, and one of the volunteers came and got it, and they said, we're actually going to take these to the men because the men are so small from, not having access to food. And everything about it was incredibly heartbreaking. We took breastfeeding supplies and formula and just stuff to love on these mothers with. And so it's kind of funny because we hear this narrative and you see the memes, which memes are facts, right? We all know that. So you see the memes where it's like, oh, where are the pro-lifers now? Like, I don't know if you guys just aren't down at the border, but we're there. We're there. The Catholic charities that are running these institutions and these refuge centers and getting health care and all these other things, like, that is absolutely where they're at. You just have to look for them. And so we found that the more we are consistent, and we don't just keep our activism to, resource centers for pregnant women, but we actually go this broad spectrum of loving people well. Like, there's so much need out there, and there's so many different ways that we can help as a pro-life community. So just like we challenge the feminist side to be more consistent when it comes to nonviolence and caring for women, we're also challenging the pro-life side to be truly pro-whole life and not just focused on pregnancy.
Okay. It's okay. Can you just repeat the question for me?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
So the question is, what inspired you to found your organization? And does your organization work on other life issues besides abortion?
I was just making sure. I was inspired. It was about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I was at a birthing conference, and I heard this amazing midwife, look her up, Jenny Joseph, speak on the devastating infant maternal mortality rates in this country and the disparities that exist amongst Black women and Black babies. Just a little bit of background. I am a doula and a childbirth educator, and I got into this field just wanting to help mamas have their babies like hippies in their homes, until Jenny Joseph opened my eyes to the reality. And it was that devastating reality that said to myself that this idea of pro-life activism, what I'm doing, is not right. The typical run-of-the-mill, giving the statistics on abortion in the Black community, make me want to vomit, that you hear from the pro-life community began to really tick me off, quite frankly. And so what happened is, a few years later, I was introduced to my friend and now co-founder of the organization that we run, and we started unpacking the disparities that exist within our own community. And so we decided we're gonna start an organization that addresses infant and maternal mortality. Okay, and not only is it addressing infant and maternal mortality, we're unpacking biases that we all have as human beings. We're making sure that every person that is volunteering, that works for our organization, is not only trained in cultural competency, because you can never truly be competent in someone else's culture. That's actually quite insulting. But cultural humility. Then we're also unpacking the real fact. I'll just tell you this. I was on a panel with Wendy Davis, the AFIA Center and Rebirth Equity Alliance in December. It was great. It's a great panel. And the one thing that I said is that until whiteness is no longer the standard, Black women will continue to die. It's the truth. And so because I know this, this is the reason why I co-lead the organization that I lead in Dallas. And how are we addressing that? We're addressing it by providing free health care to anyone, regardless of their ability to pay. You can be making six figures. You can not afford to go to an OB. You can be a single mother of 5 and can't take off of work to see a doctor. We're providing care that's culturally sensitive and relevant, that sees women for who they are, that addresses the systems that kill women, especially systems that kill Black women. That's what we're doing. And so, I don't like the fact that I'm in this position. I think anyone that fights for reproductive justice, honestly, I'm just gonna keep it real, you guys. Women that fight for reproductive justice are not the enemy. I'm gonna say it again. Women who fight for reproductive justice are not the enemy. I think everyone in this room needs to have a clearer understanding of the history at play here. And we must begin to listen to understand rather to respond. Okay? The work that I'm doing in the community that I serve is heartbreaking, and yet it's so fulfilling when we see one of our moms give birth and is empowered and doesn't walk away, you know, giving birth and empowered, but walks away knowing that she's going to be well, like, supported. Okay? And this is the deal, it's like, I've had women come to me for doula support because they literally do not want to die in childbirth. So I asked this question, you know, what's the use in all that we're doing if women are afraid that they're not going to survive childbirth because of a nurse who has a bias against her, a racial bias, a prejudice. We have to start addressing those things. And I along with my team and our organization, we are addressing those. That's what we have to do. Prenatal care, free. Childbirth education, doula support, postpartum support for mothers who do not have family, do not have anyone that knows that she's bleeding too much, where she's most at risk after giving birth. That's what we're doing. That's what we need to do. That's pro-life.
I don't know how to follow that. Cecily is one of my heroes. So I started Rehumanize International because I came to understand that a lot of pro-life people really lacked a solid foundational understanding of why they were pro-life. And I don't mean like opposing abortion because it kills a preborn human and like that was it, right? I mean, like, why do we care about the fact that abortion kills a human being at all in the first place? Like, why do we care? And I care, of course, because I believe that every human being has inherent dignity. And because we all have this inherent dignity, that we all share in this human equality. It's why I'm a feminist. It's why I'm progressive. And so we started Rehumanize International to really help people have productive conversations about this ethical philosophy that is called the consistent life ethic, where we consistently support nonviolence towards each and every human being with the understanding that because we all share in this human equality, that every act of aggressive violence is contrary to this dignity, is contrary to this equality, that any act of violence is an act of discrimination against a certain human or group of humans. So with that in mind, we said, okay, like, how are we going to talk about the consistent life ethic with young people? There wasn't really an organization that was doing it back when we founded the organization in 2011. And when we founded it, I wanted to make sure that it would be the sort of organization that I would feel comfortable in. Back when I became pro-life at 16, you know, when I was and still am queer, but also was an atheist at 16 and was and still am progressive, because I didn't feel like there was a space that existed like that in the pro-life movement where someone who was like me at 16 would have felt welcome. So I wanted to make sure there was a space for that, because if we truly want to end violence, if we truly want to end abortion, we need to make sure that everyone is on board. You can't, like, of course, like, you could make it illegal with, you know, approximately half the nation believing that it should be illegal, but you can't truly make it unthinkable without everyone believing in that inherent dignity of human beings. So that's why I founded Rehumanize. So obviously, like, as a consistent life ethic organization, it's actually, like, very clearly stated in our mission statement that we exist to bring an end to all forms of aggressive violence against humanity. And that includes abortion, but it also includes the death penalty. It includes euthanasia, torture, unjust war. It includes human trafficking, police brutality, abuse of all kinds. I'm sure the list could go on and on and on, unfortunately. But, you know, so when it comes down to it, you know, like, we have campaigns against nuclear weapons. We have campaigns against, you know, the use of the death penalty. We have campaigns against, of course, abortion, but also, you know, we really strive to educate people on these issues, on the underlying philosophy, and then to have productive dialogue with people. You know, whether or not I agree with someone at the end of the conversation is really unimportant to me, as long as there's this shared respect. Because ultimately, you know, my philosophy is useless if I don't live it, right? So that means that when I'm having discourse, when I'm having dialogue with people, that I'm recognizing their inherent humanity too. So, like, I could be talking to someone who's, you know, super hawkish when it comes to war, thinks we absolutely should be a first-use nuclear nation. And I still have to remember, like, oh man, like, you want to incinerate half the planet, and I'm still trying to respect your inherent dignity. Or for someone who, like, I know that people generally are not pro-abortion if they support it, but I cannot tell you how many people have been harassing me online in the past year who are vehemently passionate, you know, like, yeah, abortion's sacred, abortion's wonderful, it's great, it's not a necessary evil, it's a positive good. When I talk to those folks, I need to make sure that I'm respecting their inherent dignity too. So it's a lot of different things, you know, like, when it comes to the issues, and one of them is just rehumanizing people on both sides of the dialogue. So.
Y'all making me go last. I can't keep up with this. I can't match up.
You can go first next time.
We're gonna keep this short. I started Lead with Love because I got sick of people not living their pro-life words. It doesn't matter how pro-life you are in this room. We have all seen that pro-life person that is a keyboard warrior, and they will never do anything but sit behind a keyboard and call people baby murderers and how you're going to go to hell. We've all seen them. And I got tired of it. And for years, so I run a Facebook page that I've been working on for like 6 years. And in those, probably 4 of those years, we raised $25,000, $30,000 for just random things. It started with pro-life, and I say pro-life, not even talking about abortion, just for people that already had kids, or moms that they've never had a baby shower, or they needed their dishwasher fixed. And after those years, I was like, that's a lot of money. I want people to really obviously know where it's going. So I went through the process, got it in, 503, 501c3. Haha, there we go. Yeah, this is clearly what I should be doing. Thank God for accountants, right? But that's why I started it, because I wanted people, I won't say it was entirely selfless. Like, I want people to see we are not just pro-lifers that don't put our money where our mouth is. Like, I will absolutely say that. Like, I want people to see that pro-lifers, not all, but most of us, will genuinely give you the shirt off our back. We will go out to Walmart and spend money that we don't have on stuff for you. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. And Lead with Love is actually not, I don't have anywhere in my bio or the description of my organization that has anything to do with abortion or pro-life. Even though to me it is pro-life because it is a whole life, it is about anything to help anyone. We are small, but we've helped people with rent, we have helped people travel, we've helped people get passports, we've thrown more baby showers than I can ever count. But that's what it's about. And it's just like everything else, it is about the dignity of all humans.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Oh.
So for this next session, there's definitely some hard topics, right, that are brought up often whenever discussing these issues that people go to right away. So for the sake of time, I'm going to ask maybe each of you to answer one of those hard topics. And the first one I have, I think I'm going to direct it to Destiny. Sorry, girl. But especially, and you've kind of answered this in different ways already, but there's people, of course, that say opposing abortion is inherently misogynistic, right? You've already talked a little bit about that with your feminism, but especially on bodily autonomy. Whenever people are talking about bodily autonomy, that's a huge issue, huge word for today. So if you want to address that real quick.
Yeah, so I think my issue with bodily autonomy is, when does it begin? Does it magically begin the second that you go through the birth canal? Am I a human being then? Science would tell me otherwise. So for me, when I really started kind of dialing back this issue and realizing at what point is the unborn child my property? Because that's what we're saying it is. That's what abortion allows, that this person is my property because I'm bigger and stronger and they're weak and vulnerable and voiceless, then I can do what I want with them. And I'm like, okay, that sounds really familiar. Like the whole reason I'm a feminist, because I don't believe in that type of philosophy, right? Because men are bigger and stronger and held most of the power and the money and the status throughout history, they have been able to treat us like property and use violence against us when we were inconvenient. And we couldn't do anything about it because, as Aimee said, it's the epitome of might makes right. Because I'm bigger and stronger and you're weak and vulnerable, I can do what I want, you can't say anything about it. So if that's something as a feminist I oppose, then how can I turn around and pass that very same oppression on to an unborn human being? It doesn't compute for me. It's not consistent. And I believe that my feminist rights and my privilege is something that I have to use to help weaker, more vulnerable human beings. And it doesn't get weaker and more vulnerable than the unborn human person, who is literally voiceless and statusless, but does have a body that I believe should have rights over. I think that this is a human being. And, with any other vulnerable subset in our community, the solution is not, oh, kill them. That's not how we deal with poverty or homelessness or anything else. We say, okay, if you're weak right now, that's when we're going to be strong. That's when we're going to come in and use our strength to protect you. And so as a feminist, I fully believe we have to do the same with the unborn child. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. Do y'all mind if I go to the bathroom real quick?
Go for it. So, and actually, Aimee, this next one's for you. So especially since this... Especially since this relates to your personal life, how do you deal with questions of abortion in the case of sexual assault and rape and incest?
First of all, I think we have to acknowledge all sexual assault and all rape is violence against the survivor, or if they don't survive, it's against the victim's body. And we need to recognize that and acknowledge that and walk with them in their grief and in their trauma. I know, I did not have people who walked with me well when I was going through that. Actually, all of my friends in high school sided with my rapist. said that they thought that I was a slut and a whore and didn't believe me. So that's our first thing is believe survivors, stand with them and walk with them and make sure that they are getting the help that they need, that, whether that is, healthcare to make sure that, they, don't have anything like an STD or HPV after that attack, or whether that's mental health care. Like, I did not see a therapist for years after my attack. And so I went in with just trauma compounded on trauma because of, I'm not sure if y'all know, when you're in a traumatic situation, there are 3 different responses that are pretty typical. It's fight, flight, or freeze. Because my response was freeze at 16, when I was sexually assaulted again at 21, my response was freeze. And when I was sexually assaulted again at 24, my response was freeze. So, I didn't start seeing a therapist regularly until I was probably 27. So make sure that the survivors in your life are getting the physical and mental health care that they need. So that's very first thing right off the bat, right? Number 2, please don't ever go up to someone who is tabling with a pro-life display and yell in their face, "What about rape?" I have had that happen to me so many times, and I have had to walk away from the table in tears because I just wasn't in a place to be able to talk about it, and you never know what someone has been through. So number 2, please don't ever do that. It's inappropriate. And number 3, I think something that I acknowledged at 16, and something that even most people who conceive after rape will acknowledge, and statistically do acknowledge, is that unfortunately or fortunately, abortion does not solve the trauma that happens through rape and sexual assault. It does not, end that grief and that violence. It does not end that oppression. It does not undo that rape. Unfortunately, there's no way to undo a rape. And what abortion does, and like I said, a lot of people who conceive after rape will openly acknowledge that they understand that abortion would feel like yet another trauma on top of it, because it's a very invasive procedure that happens in the same exact place that the rape did. They also will acknowledge that it's passing on oppression, that they see themselves as survivors, as victims of violence, and they understand that they don't want to do that to anyone else. So I do think we need to highlight these stories. I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but the prevailing statistic is that people who conceive after rape end up carrying the child to term. And they might not always parent that child, but it's because they understand that they don't want to be part of a system and a cycle of violence. Anyone here seen Moana? Yeah? Okay, one of my favorite movies, because it's about overcoming the heritage of trauma. Whether that was, Moana overcoming the heritage of trauma that her father had from losing his friend. I'm sorry, spoilers. Or, whether it was Maui overcoming the trauma of his parents abandoning him as a baby, or whether it was the trauma of Te Kā, having the heart returned to her and, becoming Te Fiti again. It was all about overcoming this cycle of trauma and knowing that we cannot use further violence to balance the scales. And really, I'm just going to say, the only thing that brought balance to my life was understanding that I was stronger for having gone through what I went through, and really owning the fact that, I really had to own my healing for myself, and I couldn't, like lash out at anyone else that was just continuing this cycle of trauma and violence. So that's why I got my phoenix and my Battleborn tattoo. So yeah, we can talk about those after if you want.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for being so vulnerable. Cecily, how do you at least initially respond to questions about fetal abnormality, especially since you deal with birthing and birth trauma? I know it's a difficult, loaded one.
Can I pass?
Yeah.
I just, it's,
If you would like to pass, that is totally fine.
yeah.
We'll get you next time,
Yeah.
don't worry.
So I really feel like Sophie would actually be like the best one here to talk about this at length, because ultimately, abortion in the case of fetal abnormality is really abortion in the case of disability, and it's ableist, like straight up. Whether or not that child can live very long after birth, like, guys, I could walk out of this room and get run over by a car. Like, nobody knows ultimately how long they are going to live. And aborting because of, whatever, disability, whether that's spina bifida or cerebral palsy or, like any number of trisomy conditions, ultimately, those are all ableist. And we really need to call them out for what they are, which is prenatal ableism.
Thanks. Now, this final question can take a brief answer from all of you if you want. Albany, we can start with you. So, yeah, honestly, this is however you initially feel. So the question is, how do you feel about contraception?
That's my answer. Yep, I'm that person.
So I believe that a prevented potential pregnancy is a prevented potential abortion. And the more women know about their bodies and are empowered to make choices based on the information they have, the better that they can, handle all of these options. So for me, I was 15 years old when I became sexually active, and my head was full of so many myths and honestly just bad sex ed. So I am a big supporter of comprehensive sex ed, but like truly comprehensive sex ed. When Planned Parenthood talks about sex ed, a lot of times what they say is like, oh, here's all the fun stuff. Like, we're going to talk about masturbation and homosexuality and like all these things, and of course, then you have the abstinence-only people who are like, no, don't scandalize my children, whatever, y'all. Like, it's the age of the internet. You can Google anything. Like, everything's available. So I propose something in the middle where we give people scientific information, where we talk to women about their fertility and truly give them comprehensive sex ed. I was 31 years old. I was on a red-eye flight with a friend of mine, and she's sitting next to me, and she goes, oh, what time is it? And I tell her, and she goes, oh, crap, I got to go check my mucus. I'll be right back. And I was like, excuse me? What did you just say? So I am not Catholic, was not raised Catholic. I had no idea that you weirdos do this. And I think it's beyond amazing, because I didn't realize that if you take your temperature and check your mucus, and there's all these like crazy voodoo that y'all can do, that you can.
It's science.
Science voodoo. That's what I meant. Not Louisiana voodoo, science voodoo. That there's all these ways that you can actually know whether you're fertile or not. Like, that's wildly empowering. And I had the opposite of that. After I had my son, I went to the doctor. My OB put me on the pill. I went back 6 months later, and he put me on the ring. I hadn't complained about the pill. He was just like, here, try this instead. I go back 6 months after that, and he put me on the patch. These are all things that you're probably familiar with, because there's class action lawsuits for blood clots and death and all of these other things, right? And I realized, like, I never complained about any of these. Why did he keep putting me on all these different prescriptions? And then I noticed that there's these pharmaceutical reps sashaying in and out of his office, and basically I was the human guinea pig for this hormonal contraception. And I'm not anti-hormonal contraception. I think women should absolutely have access, but I want them to be fully informed. I want them to know how it works, what it's doing to their body, what it's doing for their long-term fertility, because I'm 35 now, and I can tell you that I have a number of friends who are struggling with infertility because for 15 years they took a perfectly working system and basically suppressed it. And, you know, another thing that we see is in the medical community, when you're 15 years old and you're having severe cramps or acne or headaches, you go to the doctor and it's lazy medicine. Rather than them saying, what is wrong with you? Let's actually get to the bottom of this. Let's cure this, you know. You could have fibroids growing, severe endometriosis, anything else. They just put you on the pill and send you out the door. And I'm sorry, but women deserve better than that. That is bullshit healthcare. And until we start demanding better healthcare, we're not going to get it.
Really quick, just because what you said reminded me of it. So after my, even though I am very thumbs up for birth control, I absolutely agree. Like, no matter what you do, doesn't matter if it's anything with your body, you should all know the facts. After my abortion, I was sent home with something called a goodie bag. It was a tiny brown paper bag. I had 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, and I got 1 month free of birth control pills. It was like a souvenir. Super weird. But yeah, that was my first introduction to birth control, actually. Terminate your pregnancy, here's some birth control, come back in a month, and we'll figure out something else. I didn't have any idea how the pill worked. I didn't realize till after I had used up that month that if you miss that like hour mark that you need to wait a week for it to start again. No idea. So yeah, please find out about all the options and what it does.
So as an organization, Rehumanize International does not have a take on issues that aren't related to violence. So if it doesn't kill a human, we don't have a position. That being said, as an individual, I am pretty opposed to using birth control for myself, but I'm also having issues trying to get pregnant. So that might be why. I am a strong proponent of, like Destiny said, doing comprehensive sex education so that girls, when they turn, 11, 12, whatever, during their sex education, that they learn how their body works and how fertility works. So they're equipped with that knowledge and they're not I think I'm fertile all the time, which is just a pretty common myth that exists. People think every time you have sex you can get pregnant, which would be true if the only times you were having sex were during that 3-day window each month when you are fertile. So I think that's a thing that I'm really passionate about, is educating people about how fertility works and how fertility awareness based methods of natural family planning and birth control can work.
You get birth control. You get birth control. Everybody gets birth control. No, I'm really, I think I'm an advocate for women and young girls actually knowing their bodies. I don't think that there's anything any more feminist than that. Is for us to take the control of our bodies and knowing our bodies well. Yeah. But yeah, I'm all for birth control as long as women have the full understanding of the risks and benefits involved with birth control. And also to clarify, I agreed 100% with everything that Aimee said with the question that I passed. I just wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready to answer it. I'm just being real.
It's loaded.
Oh, yeah.
Especially right now.
Yeah, it's so relevant right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So our last few questions are going to be focusing on healthcare and resources. So I'm going to start with Destiny. And your question is, in your view, what do both the pro-choice and mainstream pro-life, by which I mean right-wing Christian conservatives, sorry I can't speak tonight, movements get wrong about treating abortion-minded or post-abortive women?
I get to make enemies. All right. So I want to begin by saying there's a lot of people hating on pregnancy resource clinics right now. And I agree with some of the criticisms, honestly, because not all pregnancy resource clinics are created equally. Many of them kind of do the bare minimum. Many of them are great resources. You can go there and you can get diapers and wipies and, peer support, mentorship, things like that. That's great. That's not a healthcare clinic. I am an uninsured woman in Texas. So when it comes to me getting a cervical exam, a breast exam, actually comprehensive healthcare, I can't go to a pregnancy resource center for that. And this is where I kind of have an issue with Planned Parenthood having somewhat of a monopoly, in Texas especially. At one point, before we instituted Healthy Texas Women, I would have to drive past 3 Planned Parenthoods to get to my closest federally qualified health center. And that was Parkland Hospital. I was familiar with Parkland because when I was 18 years old, my best friend's brother's appendix exploded, and we had to get him to the hospital because he couldn't die because he was the guy who bought us beer. So it was really, really, really important that we keep him alive. And so we drive him to Parkland, and I remember sitting down, and there was a guy with a pencil in his eye socket. He was not in a room. There was not a curtain. He was sitting there. So if you tell me I have to go there for my pap smear next to eyeball pencil guy, I'm sorry, but you're doing women a disservice. That's not okay, right? So Texas did a really cool thing. It was under Governor Perry, and he was very pro-life, and he decided that we would not take any federal Medicaid money to support Planned Parenthood. And, what is the saying? That necessity is the mother of invention. So what ended up happening was we had to come up with another program. Healthy Texas Women was born from that. Basically, it is just like Medicaid. When you're pregnant in Texas, you get on Medicaid. You can see any provider. They can take Medicaid. When you're not pregnant, though, it's really hard to access that same health care. And so the message we were sending women is, when you're with child, we care about you, but when you're on your own, we don't care about your health. That's kind of BS. We want to care about the woman and the child, right? So Healthy Texas Women has stepped up, and they're trying to do that. But unfortunately, there's just such a backlog that it's really, really difficult to get in. I mean, you're waiting months to get in for an exam and appointments. And so when I hear the pro-life side say, oh, we don't need Planned Parenthood because we've got pregnancy centers, it's like saying we don't need apples because we have bananas over here. What? We're talking about different things. And it's not to crap on pregnancy centers at all because they're doing wonderful work. The coolest thing is seeing the ones that are stepping up and doing STD screenings and actual exams. And so we're trying to create this seal of approval through, what is it called? The Pro Women's Health Consortium. Is basically creating the seal of approval to get these pregnancy centers up to medical standards so that they are actually competing with Planned Parenthood because, I'm going to be honest, I know the Planned Parenthood fan club's up there. Sorry, you guys. Planned Parenthood just not the best care. They just kind of have a monopoly on it. But they kind of tend to move you through like cattle. If anybody's ever been there, it's not necessarily the best care. And I think the best care comes through competition. And so when we have different places offering women competitions, they're going to have to step up their game when it comes to caring for women. Until that happens, hearing the pro-life side just say, defund Planned Parenthood, well, then what? Women still need health care. We still need help. So I think this is a great place for the pro-life movement to step up and get our facilities, our pregnancy centers. We already have the brick and mortar. So let's do more than just sonograms. Let's actually get OBs in there who can offer women health care, because I think we live in a very #blessed nation where a lot of people have insurance. But I think that there's also a ton of people who don't have insurance. And I can tell you it's really scary being a woman who's uninsured and not knowing where you can go for health care. And you can go to a local health clinic if you have a cold or something like that. But when it comes to your lady kit, we don't have a whole lot of options, you guys. So I think that's a place where the pro-life movement could do a little bit better. We see them, we throw a lot of money behind politicians who talk about stuff give us some of that politician money. Put that towards health care instead. You're going to win over more votes that way, probably.
Forever. Lady cat. Let's go to another question.
Yeah, sorry. So, Albany, you're up next. Your question.
I was just saying, we can't beat that. She said everything I could have said.
No. You have a whole new baby just for you. So, your question is, what resources and help do you recommend for post-abortive women?
Okay, that area.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of different resources for women that have, did you say post-abortive and abortion-minded women, or just post-abortive?
I said post-abortive, but if you want to talk a little bit about abortion-minded, feel free.
Let's do it. So I'll do a post-abortive first, since I am post-abortive. I actually used to run, it wasn't a legit nonprofit, but I did have a website. It was called reclaimingabortionrecords.com. And 3 years after my abortion, or not 3 years after, I'm sorry, 19. So 3 years after becoming pro-life, so I was, what's math here? I was roughly 22. I went to Planned Parenthood in Greeley, Colorado, and I went to reclaim my abortion records because I felt that I had found healing. I actually had tried to go to a place called Rachel's Vineyard, very, very popular, large Catholic post-abortive healing program, and they turned me away. And it was really unfortunate because I know they're an incredible organization that help post-abortive women. They have beautiful retreats. I just happened to have a woman that woke up on the bitch side of the bed that morning. That's just the way it was. She was very cruel to me. And I had to find my own healing. So I was like, you know what, I want my records. I want to hold those papers and have it in my life. And I went to the Planned Parenthood. Super awesome people. By the way, I'm going to say this, especially the Planned Parenthood group up there. For the most part, I have always had a great time at Planned Parenthood with excellent people. Outside of my situation with the clinic where I had my sonogram and where I had my abortion, I've gone to Planned Parenthood for birth control. I've gone to talk about just anything with the lady kits. For the most part, I have run into amazing people. So I went up there and I was nervous. It'd been years. You know, I've been vocally pro-life and I've gone and spoke at colleges. And I was so scared walking in there. And the moment I started talking to the woman, I felt super casual, super at ease. She asked why I wanted my records. I said they were just my personal use. She was great. I got them. The Planned Parenthood that I had gotten my abortion at was torn down to make like a mass one. It's like the third largest in Denver now. So it took a minute, got my records, walked out, and I sat in my car, and everything was fine. And I was scrolling through my papers. I don't get emotional a lot. This is where I actually have human feelings. There was a sonogram. It's weird, I've actually told this like a lot. It was the first time I'd ever seen my son that I aborted. And it was like reliving seeing my daughter's sonogram all over again, realizing what I did during my abortion. And it was like starting all over with healing. And so I went and started a website where I could help women across the U.S. reclaim their abortion records if it was going to find healing. And I try to make that very, very clear because sometimes that can actually hurt women more. Like it did me. I was not prepared. What I want to say, though, is I really think the pro-life movement, and none of us are shy about saying areas where the pro-life movement needs to do better. And truthfully, post-abortive healing needs to do better, too. And I'm saying this from a secular perspective. We don't have a lot of options for secular women. And that sucks. Like I said, Rachel's Vineyard is a great organization. Most people I know that have been there have had a great time. There's a Silence No More, post-abortive women that go and speak out. There are options, but there's not options for everyone. And with abortion-minded women, this is like a whole other topic where like I'm gonna keep it as short as possible because I know we don't have a lot of time, but that's honestly probably the biggest area where we have to get better for abortion-minded women, because just as Destiny's been talking a lot about, Cecily, Aimee, everyone, where do we start? How can we reach every woman and let her know that she's not alone and that we can help her with the reason that she's choosing abortion, whether it's pressure, finances, she already has kids. You know, I've sidewalk counseled many times, and I've always done it with love. I absolutely detest people that go out there. Sorry if this is anyone out here, but I cannot stand people that use graphic images outside abortion clinics. I am so against that. I can't tell you how many women that I speak to about ready to go have an abortion or schedule one because they already have kids at home. over 60% of women that have abortions already have a child. They're not ignorant to it, and that's something we have to stop. But we need options. We need more, and someone else can continue. I can't. Or we can do another question.
All right, so this last one is pretty intense. I'm gonna direct it initially to Cecily. But it's, well, it's your wheelhouse. So there's a lot of anxiety today about Roe versus Wade and the future of abortion rights and is it going to be repealed and this and that. So my question for you is, what would good health care look like for women in a post-Roe world?
It look a lot like the organization I run, but you know. I haven't mentioned my organization because I'm not here on behalf of my organization. I'm here because I am a racial and maternal justice activist. And my organization, I believe it is a life-affirming organization, but we're not going to tokenize my organization for the pro-life movement. So if you're interested, I mean, I'll probably share eventually, but accessible healthcare for all women, period. But not only accessible healthcare for all women, culturally relevant, sensitive healthcare, overturning the systems of healthcare that we have now that address implicit biases, implicit and explicit biases, holding nurses and doctors and midwives accountable when they are harming women. Because women are being harmed from the moment they make their first phone call, just because their name may be LaQuisha or Hernandez. From the very moment that they make their first phone call, they're harmed. Many women are. In a post-Roe world, we need to provide more healthcare centers, you know? And not only that, we need to provide resources for women that need it. I'm talking about when a woman comes in and we have free care, but she's being abused. We're not just handing her a card, you know, or a pamphlet. We have relationships with organizations in our communities. We know people on a first name basis, and we hold their hand through the process. I think that we have to look beyond healthcare. We have to look at man, I tell you what, I talk a lot about, sorry. I love Black women. I'm just gonna be real, I'm just gonna keep it real. I love Black women. And I'm reeling this in here because if we're gonna address this issue on healthcare disparities, we have to understand that there is a community in which women are dying at disproportionate rates, and we are not addressing those issues. We're not addressing them. And it's not about poverty. It's part of it. It's about generation after generation of systems and policies that affect marginalized groups, that turn communities into food deserts, that prevent women from even being able to sustain a healthy pregnancy. It's not having a livable wage. so that you can bring another life into the world? Thank you.
Does anyone have anything to add to that? Or?
Hold on. No, hold on.
Oh,
I just have to pause. I just have to pause right now.
Sorry, Cecily.
It's humanizing people that don't look like you. So this goes beyond healthcare. Like everything is connected. It's from housing, discrimination, from communities that are intentionally made food deserts and are riddled with violence due to systemic oppression. You know, it's so multifaceted, it's so layered. And so in a post-Roe world, I think the first thing that needs to happen is we have to stop and we have to listen to each other. We do. And then we have to realize that holding these strong core values, holding these strong opinions and views, there's nothing wrong with it. But where is that underlying, where is it, what's the root of what we're trying to get to? I can guarantee you the majority of people in this room that are consider themselves pro-choice are pro-life, like life flourishing. They want to see women thrive. They want to see communities thrive. But also, to my pro-choice people, the reason why we're here is so that you can see that there are people that maintain a consistent life ethic, that are pro-life, that see you. And we are actually doing the work. And so I think the biggest damage that we can do right now is fight this war. I know I'm going. Is fight this. We're fighting this war between different views, and both of us are trying to win. When really what needs to happen is both of us need to put up our white flag, and we need to surrender. And we need to say, no, you know what? I want actual solutions. And actually coming together to figure out those solutions that actually affirm life, whole life, that'll save more lives than we could ever do on our own. Ever. But we've got to get out of our bubble. We gotta start humanizing each other. We have to start understanding that the root of what we're trying to do is to help people. Y'all agree?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Okay.
You
can.
That's what it really is. Yes, that's the way. Thank you.
Is that it, or?
Alex be mad you break his mic.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
Oh,
That wasn't a pause.
I'm scared now. So I think our panelists deserve a huge round of applause. Now we're gonna go into the part of the night where it's gonna be Q&A. So if y'all have any questions for any of our panelists, once again, and I believe in all of you, but I just ask that you keep it, respectful, just as they have been. And Alex Lucas, you're gonna be passing the mic?
Yes.
Okay. So let's get started with some questions.
And ice cream is on the way.
Nah. Yeah, if you want to just come, or I'll bring it to you. That's fine.
Question is for Albany, have or what are your thoughts about Pro-Voice, a post-abortive organization that caters to people basically not Christian? And do you recommend it to people, or? Sorry, go ahead. Pro-Voice.
I only know one pro-voice, but it's the organization that's not pro-life or pro-choice.
Yes, and their website and they have a 24-hour talk line, and then their website has different coping mechanisms that for after abortion care.
Yeah, so I actually used to work with I shouldn't say work, but I was really good friends. You want to use that? I'll yell. That's fine. I actually used to be friends with a woman who worked with Pro-Voice. She was post-abortive, and I always thought it was a really cool middle ground, and I had a lot of people that disagreed with me. But I liked the idea, regardless of how I disagreed, of a place where someone could call and they could just talk to someone. For those that don't know, Pro-Voice is, they don't consider themselves pro-life or pro-choice. They just want to affirm that what you feel is valid. They understand that emotions are not linear. And I actually like that because that's true. There's people that are pro-life and pro-choice that have had abortions, and one day you might be like, you know what, that was the right decision. That's absolutely it. And then the next week, you have a breakdown. Like when I just had that 2-minute breakdown, I haven't cried from telling that story the last 10 times that I spoke. And for whatever reason, it just hit me. And that's how abortion is. And so even though obviously I don't support abortion, and I don't want anyone to feel yay excited about it, I do actually like the idea of someone's feelings still being validated. We can't control that, and we need to hear them whether we agree with them or not. I hope that answered it. I'm very...
No, it did, because I refer post-abortive people to Pro-Voice who are not Christian.
Okay. Yeah, they don't have any religious affiliation, correct? No political, no religious? Okay.
I think if I could add something to that, something that we see a lot is that a woman who's had an abortion is expected to do the pro-life side or the pro-choice side. So she either has to be just sobbing and full of regret and it's the worst decision she ever made, or she has to be on the pro-choice side where she's shouting her abortion and it's the best thing she ever did. I've yet to meet that woman. I've met a lot of women who have shouted their abortions, but when you really talk to them, they'll let you know that there's some mixed feelings in there. This is not an easy choice. It's something that is very difficult for so many women. And I was recently talking to some friends in San Francisco, and they were telling me the story about a friend that they had who had an abortion in her teen years, and then her life kind of spun out of control. And she went to therapist after therapist after therapist. And with each one, she would say, I had an abortion. Could this be the root of it? And they would say, no. Because, of course, their mind, abortion is not a big deal. It was a big deal for her. But what they ended up doing unintentionally, because they wanted to validate her and affirm her, was they ended up unintentionally gaslighting her and basically telling her, no, this wasn't a problem at all. And finally, 10 years down the road, after she had experienced drug addiction and alcohol addiction, she went and saw, I can't remember if it was a priest or a pastor, but it was somebody, clergy, and said something about, I'm going through all of these troubles, and I don't know, I had an abortion, it could be that. Because by this point, she's been told that it's not even a big deal. And he responded, of course that affected you. That's literally all he said. And this woman felt so validated by someone saying, of course this affected you, and validating her emotions over her abortion, that it was the beginning of this journey of healing for her. So when we allow women to express themselves honestly, and we don't push our agenda on them, that this has to be the best thing that ever happened to you or the worst thing that ever happened to you, but we can just listen to their stories. At the end of the day, I'm a feminist because I don't want a woman to ever be in bondage. So that means I don't want her chained barefoot and pregnant to a stove, but I also don't want her in emotional bondage from an abortion that she can't get over because everyone on each side keeps gaslighting her and not letting her feel her feelings. So I think pro-voice hotlines and websites are pretty amazing, actually.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll get you next. Who was it?
I just want to thank all of y'all for sharing again. My question is, how can a male feminist reach out to other men? Because obviously women don't need to be told how they feel about these kinds of things, but there are a lot of men that want to be wholesomely involved, not step over any boundaries. So how can a male feminist reach out to his male friends on this sensitive topic?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before.
It's a good one.
question. Yeah,
I'm
it's a good
wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, tell us more.
So I actually I'll give a talk on pro-life feminism, and I think this year the only talks I'm giving, like other than this one that I have on my schedule, have been for the pro-life feminism talk. In that one, I specifically talk about how it's so vital that people with privilege, of course, use that privilege for those who aren't experiencing that privilege. So people who are born, have born privilege, should use their voice for the preborn who are at risk for the violence of abortion. And of course, people who don't have uteruses should be working really hard to ensure that our workplaces, our academic environments, even our home and our culture in general can be affirming places for people who do have uteruses. Because we live in this culture where it's really built around the wombless male body, right? Because we live in this culture that is based on the wombless male body, periods are seen as disgusting. And oh no, I gotta hide my tampon as I walk out from class to the bathroom. I have started having conversations openly about my periods with my male friends. I'm like, hello. Me and approximately 50% of the worldwide population experience this thing during the course of our lifetime once a month. I would like you to know about it and end your misogyny against periods.
Hey, would you like a tampon, probably?
I'm on my period right now.
Same. Same.
And the stigma.
No, it truly is ending the stigma. It is. Because there is a stigma around menstruation, so we need to end that stigma. So men, talk to your male friends about the fact that periods are normal. Help your male friends to understand what endometriosis pain feels like, because it fucking sucks. I had surgery for it last May, and I'm still having the worst cramps of my entire life. But I'm here, so you know. Women are badass. So that's one thing that is really easy for a male feminist to do, is to help the other men in their lives understand what periods are like, to help men understand what fertility is like for those of us who have cycles. That's a really simple thing to do. I had to educate my now husband on how fertility works, and it was a learning experience for sure, but that's another thing that can be done in male circles. Of course, we need to make sure that men are stepping up into places where, say you have a pregnant or parenting student on your campus, right? Does anyone know any pregnant or parenting students on this campus? Okay, a few. Okay, cool. So those of you who are not pregnant or parenting, you need to be stepping up into those spaces, because your pregnant and parenting students, they're gonna be busier than you. Because they have children, at least a child. I don't know how many. So you need to make sure that you're stepping up into those spaces and holding your administration accountable, saying hey, do we have accessible childcare on our campus, or is it just for faculty? My college, it was faculty first, then grad students, first PhD students, then grad students, then maybe undergrad students. I don't remember if community members came before undergrad students, but it was not accessible. Is there accessible housing on or near your campus for pregnant and parenting students? Do pregnant and parenting students get kicked out of your on-campus housing? Because that happened at my campus. So people who aren't pregnant and parenting, make sure that you're stepping up into those spaces. So male feminists, this is your laundry list of things to get started on right now.
Okay, who was... I knew there was someone back here. I'll get you next.
gonna get your exercise tonight.
Oh, I exercise at the gym.
Hey guys, as a pro-choice Democrat, I just want to say and it was really actually genuinely interesting hearing about the diversity in the movement. My question is for Cecily. Is that how you pronounce it? Yes. Awesome. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Cecily, you talked a lot about women's reproductive health and maternal mortality rates. Sorry. So how do you reconcile that concern for women's health with the reality that before Roe v. Wade, thousands of women died from unsafe illegal abortions?
Well, one, I'm very much pro-life. I don't focus on the laws. I really don't. I don't focus on that because I truly believe that regardless of what the laws are, we're not addressing the root. And so there may have been, thousands upon thousands of women dying prior. I'm a processor, y'all, so I'm trying.
Speaking to the mic.
Okay, the root was never being addressed. Thank you. I know I have, and then I'm just like, oh, it just gets weird sometimes. Sorry. Yeah, I think from the very get-go, the root has never been addressed. I mean, if you really want to dig deep, I mean, I'm going to go there. Because I told you I was going to be blackety black. I did. I told you. She said she was going to be like raccoon eyes to the core, and I was like, I'm going to be blackety black.
Atheists is goth too, and I was like, well, I'll bring it.
Okay, so I know that when we're talking about the subject of abortion, this pertains to everybody, but I always look from the lens of race because of who I am. And so if we can go way back before all this Roe v. Wade was going on, like there was experimentation on my people. There was forced sterilization. There was rape. There was literally breeding my ancestors to create everything that we have, And so again, even then, the root was never addressed. I don't believe that abortion rights is addressing the root, okay? When we think about the reasons why women choose to have an abortion, yes, there are going to be several women that choose to have abortion, and they're like, have 10 abortions, it's not a thing. Or there can be a woman that's being sex trafficked and she's had 15 abortions and she's become numb to it, but that's oppression. That's misogyny. That's patriarchy. That's enslavement. Abortion is not the answer. And so I'm looking at we keep talking about abortion as if it is like this great thing, like this is the main thing. We are not supporting women. We're not getting down to the heart, to the meat, to the root of why this is even a thing. It was once, what is it? The slogan is safe, legal, and rare. Now it's on demand without apology. Like it has become this thing that we uplift, and I'm like, no. We need to address the racism in our country. We need to address the lack of health care. We need to address the food deserts that our mothers are living in. We need to address police brutality. We need to address all of these other things that are actually the root of why abortion is even a thing. And so I think what I'm really hoping is that we can get to this place where, like, when I see Planned Parenthood people, I'm like, you guys are like a cult. Like, y'all just, man, y'all love Planned Parenthood. I really want to get to this place where we're like, we have people that are like, have these shirts that are like justice shirts. Roots. We're all about getting to the root. It's not about supporting us particular, like this particular organization or this, but we're like, we're gonna dig up the roots and we're gonna, the weeds that are actually choking out the fruit. So you know that's what happens, right? You know weeds, like they grow so many, their weeds, their roots grow so deep and they choke out life. That, I believe that abortion is part of that. I do. And I believe that all of these other systems in play, those are all the weeds. And the roots are just choking out the fruit of life. And I'm not talking about just the life of the unborn. I'm talking about life of women and men and families thriving and being happy about being pregnant, not being fearful of being pregnant. You know, being happy about having choices to birth on their terms, where they want to birth on their terms. We don't even have that. We don't. I can keep going, but I'm gonna stop. I can go on tangents, but it's just like what's going on right now. I don't even know if I answered your question, shoot.
No.
Like if that's what you were,
Yeah, no, that was a great
something?
response. No, I definitely appreciate you talking about like the roots of abortion, trying to focus on those. In addition to us all working together to change the situation of mothers so that they won't go to abortion as an alternative, would you like to see Roe v. Wade and similar policies and laws overturned?
So this is the deal. Okay. So this is the deal. Like, I believe that life from conception to natural death is all valuable. It's all, like, everyone is worthy to be fought for. And so when I think about people that are fighting to end abortion and overturn laws, I understand the heart behind what they're doing. I absolutely, and that's the thing. I want everybody to kind of like take a chill pill for a second and like think about the heart behind why they're doing it. Okay, they're fighting for the most vulnerable. The thing is, if we're doing that, but we're not actually, again, addressing the roots and coming alongside and creating systems, creating organizations, overthrowing powers of white supremacy, and so on and so forth, then we're still gonna see death. We're still gonna see death. Yeah.
So I used to always say that for me, it's like, as a peace activist, nonviolence activist, right? Like, I'm for a strong military that we never use. And I was so naive and dumb when I said that at 28 years old, because I believed if we had a strong military, we would never use it. So I would also say things like, keep abortion legal, just keep the abortion clinics empty. It doesn't work that way, because when you have a mammoth that is built on abortion and that is what it gets its profit from, it is going to go out and find abortion. It is going to make sure that it keeps feeding the beast. So when we have an abortion industry, whether we like it or not, and I think you guys are probably awesome kids. Like Albany was saying, most of the people I know who support Planned Parenthood, like, they truly believe they're fighting for women and they're doing a good thing. But at the end of the day, we have to understand it's a business. It's an organization where a big chunk of its bread and butter does come from abortion. And so we have to say, okay, are we putting the cart before the horse? When it comes to, I was recently in Ireland and they had the coat hangers out and they said, no more coat hanger abortions. And I was like, hell yes, high five. Like, I didn't mean I want to keep abortion legal. I was saying I don't want there to be any need for abortion, period. Like, I'm right there with you. Let's get rid of dangerous abortion. Let's get rid of back alley abortion. Let's get rid of abortion on Main Street for profit, which is what we have in our nation right now. Like, no woman wants an abortion. I truly don't believe that. It's not getting a massage. Like, it's a procedure, a medical procedure that's expensive and that a lot of times is fraught with emotion. So how do we address that and make sure that no woman has to ever even contemplate this necessary evil or this thing that she's become numb to? Like, if we can all kind of agree, the problem is that reproductive justice and feminism has become synonymous with abortion. When you say you're pro-choice, you get that that means more than abortion, right? I mean, like, choice is a wide array. I recently became friends with a woman who works for the Texas Abortion Fund. So what they do is they actually help women who cannot afford abortion pay for their abortions. She's an awesome lady. We're planning on putting together an anti-racism panel. Like, there's a lot of stuff we can work on. This woman literally helps women fund abortions. But through forming a relationship with her, I started talking to her about the fact that we know that a lot of times the number one reason women consider abortion is because of financial pressure. So if you're already experiencing financial pressure to the point where you can't even afford a $500 abortion, then I doubt those other options seem like true options to you. When you have no choice but abortion, that's not pro-choice. And so I asked her, when these women come to you because they need assistance with abortion, are you also making sure that they have access to other resources, whether it's Catholic charities or maternity homes? Because I truly believe that a lot of women, if they knew how to access these abortions, they might make nonviolent choices at the end of the day. And so when we're talking about creating this post-Roe culture, we're not ready for it yet. As much as as a pro-lifer, I should say, yes, I want Roe overturned tomorrow so that we respect and protect all human dignity. I want to believe that in my heart. But if it were to happen tomorrow, I don't think we as a culture are ready because we don't understand the humanity of the unborn person yet. And so people always say, well, it's like slavery or the Holocaust. It's these things that it's not. In my opinion, it's like jaywalking. I think it would be like enforcing jaywalking laws, where every once in a while somebody would get popped for it. But if you have the sympathy of the entire culture understanding a need for abortion and not understanding the humanity of the unborn person, when we create these laws, they're going to look the other way. So again, creating the post-Roe culture for me is about addressing demand and not supply. And until we address demand, I mean, keep working the supply side. Like 80% of the pro-life movement's doing that, so keep going. But I would love to see more people addressing the demand side.
All right, I think we have time for two more. So I know there was some, not you, Shannon, but you can go next. Who was over here? Cool.
Hello. So a lot of the things you guys said rang really true for me, but I am pretty committed to the reproductive justice side. Albany, you actually mentioned that you've done sidewalk counseling. I'm the person on the other side of the sidewalk. I'm a clinic escort. Some of my favorite people. Right. So what I want to ask is, where do you guys see common ground? If you do see common ground between anti-choice and pro-choice people, how can we make productive progress together? Because so many of the things you guys say you care about, I care about deeply too. Giving women a choice. I care about women being able to carry their pregnancy if that's what they want to do. I don't want people to be, forced into abortions because they can't afford to carry the pregnancy. Just because I believe in the choice doesn't mean I don't believe in supporting pregnant women. So where do you guys see progress? Where do you guys see opportunities for anti and pro-choice people to work together?
I think if you could call us anti-abortion, I would prefer that, because I'm not anti-choice. I'm anti-abortion specifically, and then I'll call you pro-choice. Like, we'll do that. There's a lot of ways we can work together. A big part is, we know that coercion plays a role. So as an escort, when you're out there and you see a woman who's crying or upset, or the parents seem to be forcing her, be an advocate for that woman, because you know that somebody is going to be going in there uncomfortably, and you need to stand up for her. I mean, being pro-choice, really making sure that she has a choice. I think that's a great way that you on the front lines can do that.
No, seriously, I said, I've been through all the stages of pro-life. I was that dick pro-lifer, when I changed. It's true, when I became an atheist, when I first became an atheist, I was an angry atheist. When you make that really hard jump, and a very quick jump, it's hard not to be super emotional. So when I first became pro-life, I thought I was a murderer, I thought I was a POS, I was worthless. You know, it's a thing you go through. And I hated everyone who was pro-choice because I thought, you know, you were the enemy, you guys had lied to me, and that's just not true. We all have something we can agree on, except for like maybe like the 0.3% that no one likes in any side. They can go to their own, they can go to California. Sorry. I love so much what Cecily does. I'm gonna totally like put her in a spotlight because she's honestly like, look at some of the stuff she talks about, or Destiny with going to the border and racial justice and anti-war and death penalty. Like, we don't even have to talk about abortion. We can come together and work on this world and work on loving people without even talking about abortion. And then when we create that connection, because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to relationships. One of my best friends, I actually met online, hated each other's guts. We thought each other were horrible people. And then we went to an Iron Maiden concert together. Now we're best friends. And she is hardcore pro-choice. We found extreme common ground on the support of tubal ligations and vasectomies for men and women at 18. You are a legal adult. Here are the options. Like, that was where we found common ground. And it's just the small things. And it's all, like everyone here says, you have to be able to listen.
And you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be willing to take a seat at the table and talk to, like, I love the fact that you guys are here. I was telling the Planned Parenthood group, I love the fact that they're here too. I mean, I love that you guys are sitting in uncomfortable spaces because I do it all the time. I recently went to a Democratic Socialist meeting and then I went to a reproductive justice meeting just in the last 2 weeks. And yeah, I did. I had a blast. And by the end, like, I was meeting people and they're coming up and hugging me because we do agree on so much. And so at the end of the day, I might not be making this huge, you know, cultural change, but I know that my friend who works for the Texas Abortion Fund, if she does find a woman who maybe isn't sure about her abortion decision and wants to parent, I'm going to be the first person she comes to because she knows me now. She has my contact information. She knows that I am going to be able to get that care and access for her. I had a woman up in New York who was working at a battered women's shelter who I've known since 3rd grade. We used to listen to Ace of Base together, so that ages me a little bit. And oh my gosh, it's the best band in the world. And she's super pro-choice. She's up in New York, and she called me a couple months back and said, I've got a woman who came in with 2 black eyes, and she's pregnant with twins, and she's suicidal. Like, and she said, I know that I probably shouldn't take her to Planned Parenthood because she's probably, you know, with abortion on the table, she's going to make a decision that she doesn't fully want to make, but she's in such emotional turmoil. Do you know anywhere else I could take her where they can just give her all of her options? And we ended up getting her in contact with a charity, and 48 hours later, she called me and she said, this woman has a new lease on life. She went from wanting to take her life and the life of her children to saying, maybe this is a fresh start for us. And it's because we offered love and support. And so this friend, while we ideologically disagree, the fact that she has my information, knows how to contact me, knows how to get a hold of me is really important. And there's going to be people, like, this is a two-way street. There might be things that you can offer, you know, a woman who has experienced sexual assault and maybe needs Plan B, you know, and there are multitude of issues that I think most of us can agree on in the middle, especially about preventative care. And when we have those connections, then it's not so scary anymore. And so often both sides, you know, especially the pro-life side, I hate to say this about us, but in our attempt to humanize the unborn, we dehumanize other people. And we have to stop doing that. We have to make sure that we're seeing you. You seem like a lovely person, and I'm sure you do really great stuff, and I'm sure you have a heart for women. And I don't want to form a relationship with you so I can change your mind and proselytize to you or anything else, but I definitely see some opportunities where if you see that scared girl who's being coerced into a clinic, you know that you can come to me and I can help you find resources for her.
You know, being the leader of an organization that literally has like a laundry list of issues that we addressed on the regular, people ask me like, well, what's it like going into like the anti-war space or the anti-death penalty space or the pro-life space? Because, like, you know, going into pro-life spaces is uncomfortable for us too, because we have this whole like consistent ethic of life, and, you know, we have the gays and liberals and like the gays, yes. We have a lot of LGBT people on staff. It's wonderful. And, you know, so we often end up being, you know, the uncomfortable ones in these various spaces. And so I do think, I agree with what Destiny was saying, like being willing to be in uncomfortable spaces, I think is really important. But it also means that We might come together on, like say we're gonna work to end the death penalty. And maybe that's the only thing that we agree on is we wanna end the death penalty. Like, let's work our asses off to end the death penalty. Like, let's not get caught up with, all these, X, Y, and Z other issues. Like, let's work hard on that together and, use that common ground to the benefit of those who are on death row. And like, let's understand that in the end, it's not about us. It's about those people who are experiencing violence, who, like maybe they're marginalized and they're behind bars, and like, let's amplify their voices, or, like whatever the issue is, right? So let's come together around that. I did want to also address something else, which is it's being talked about right now, like in the media. It's being put out there, thrown out there into the universe, that Roe is going to be overturned. And like, there's been a little bit of discussion about, how that's a possibility. And so something that I think that we can work together on as, pro-choice and pro-life, with that possibility in mind, is not only everything that all of these beautiful humans have been talking about, in terms of preventive health care, like comprehensive understandings of food deserts and redlining and, all these racial justice issues, and, making sure that there's not coercion when it comes to abortion. We can also talk about our justice system and the justice system that we live in. Because right now we live in this justice system that is inherently dehumanizing. It's retributive. It seeks to punish people for the sake of punishment. And so I find that a lot of pro-choice people, like ultimately the reason why they support the legal right to abortion is because they don't want women to be punished for, like if they have an abortion. So what we really need to do, I think, together is upend our entire justice system to reorient it towards our inherent human dignity, to really understand that a justice system built around our human equality is going to be one that is restorative. So that when we're talking about, the possibility of Roe being overturned and abortion being made illegal, we're not going to end up in a society where women end up behind bars. That we're going to end up in a society where instead of seeking to punish people who participated in abortions, we're seeking to ask the question about how did this person get into this, situation in the first place? How do we empower them with the information and resources that they might need so they never feel like they have to be put in this situation again? How do we address the injustices that are at play in their workplace or in their school or in society in general? So we're talking about not just punishing and like not even punishing in the first place, but rather restoring community and bringing people together to address the injustices that are at play and really, upending that whole system. So I think that's something that, like we really can and should be working together on. Of course, like not only around abortion, but like around a whole other plethora of issues of crime and justice in the first place. Like we need to be taking this back to the root, planting a new system that is rehumanizing.
I work with a lot of people across the spectrum, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit afterwards, because I know that there's one more question I want to be able to.
I think we're gonna.
Are you, no question?
You can have the last.
Oh, okay. So I got comfortable, y'all.
I have to pee again. So.
Okay. I mean, you're good. No offense taken. Okay, so I think when it really boils down to it, I think pro-life and pro-choice, I just can't stand both labels. I like to consider myself pro-liberation. And so I think ways in which we can work together is by putting together doula programs that can support women, making sure that we are providing comprehensive childbirth education, not only parenting classes, but breastfeeding. It's known that increased breastfeeding helps to reduce infant mortality. I've actually had conversations with pro-life groups and activists, I've encouraged them to reach out to reproductive justice organizations because I know the reproductive justice organizations address these issues. And so that's working together, going across the aisle, not being okay with not agreeing with everything. I mean, I know this is a life or death issue, but it's nuanced, it's complicated. Humanizing each other and breaking down our barriers will help us to communicate with each other a little bit better. I mean, I think, man, like if pro-choice and pro-life people actually band together and create organizations that help support women, man, it would be mind-blowing. It really would. So, I mean, I feel like I'm repeating a lot of the things I've already said today.
I think
but
that's a perfect way to end it, though. I mean, work together.
yeah,
We
just
might
work
always
together.
disagree, but imagine the shit we can change.
Right.
Parental leave. Let's do that.
Parental leave, yeah.
Oh, bye.
Work together. Helps everybody.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Let's give our panelists a very big round of applause. Oh, so much. This was wonderful. And thank you all for coming. Y'all have a good night. And there is ice cream, so help yourselves. Yeah. Go run to the bathroom. We're going to do a picture with the board and everything. We also have free speech board and resources if you are interested. All right. Y'all. Yeah. Can you find someone to take it?